After 25 years of perfect performance reviews and record-breaking sales, I discovered my boss had secretly hired my replacement at exactly half my salary while training me to teach him everything I knew. What I uncovered next about his real plan would land him in federal prison and change everything I thought I knew about corporate loyalty. But how did a simple workplace betrayal turn into a million-dollar conspiracy that destroyed lives? My computer screen showed an email that made my blood run cold. 25 years at Pinnacle Industries, and this is how I found out someone was taking my job. Welcome, Preston Johnson, to our Millbrook team. The announcement from Human Resources felt like a punch to my gut. I read it 3 times, hoping I was wrong. The new hire email listed Preston as Client Relations Specialist with a starting salary of $43,500. That was exactly half of what I made doing the same work. My hand shook as I scrolled through my email history. Gordon Mowrick, my boss, had been acting strange for weeks. Late-night meetings I wasn't invited to. Hush phone calls that stopped when I walked by. Comments about fresh approaches and new energy that I thought were just corporate talk. Now everything made sense in the worst possible way. I walked to the break room, needing coffee and time to think. My mind raced back to last month when Gordon asked me to train a new assistant. He said Preston would help with overflow work during busy seasons. I spent hours teaching Preston everything I knew about our biggest clients. How to handle Johnson Manufacturing's complicated orders. The way Davenport Construction liked their reports formatted. 25 years of knowledge, handed over like I was some kind of teacher. But Preston wasn't my assistant. He was my replacement. The coffee tasted bitter as I returned to my desk. I opened my filing cabinet, grateful that I kept copies of everything. My performance reviews from the past 5 years were all excellent. My sales numbers consistently beat company targets. Last quarter, I brought in more revenue than any other employee in the building. So why was I being replaced by someone making half my salary? I heard Gordon's voice from his office, talking on the phone. The door was slightly open, and his words drifted out clearly. The transition should be smooth. Preston's eager and learns fast. Much easier to work with than some of our veteran staff. Veteran staff. That's what I was now. Not a valuable employee with decades of experience. Just expensive overhead that needed to be managed. My computer pinged with another email. This one was from Preston directly, asking if we could meet to discuss his new responsibilities. I stared at the message, wondering how much he knew about what was really happening. I decided to find out. Preston was organizing files at the empty desk they'd given him near the window. He looked up when I approached, his young face bright with excitement that made my stomach twist. Hi, I want to thank you again for all the training. I know you're busy, but I have some questions about the Granger account. I sat down across from him, studying his expression. Preston, can I ask you something directly? Of course. What exactly did Gordon tell you about your role here? Preston's smile faltered slightly. He said I'd be supporting the client relations team, learning the business from experienced professionals like you. Did he mention anything about taking over accounts? The color drained from Preston's face. Well, he did say there might be opportunities for advancement, that some positions were being restructured. My heart hammered against my ribs. What kind of restructuring? Preston glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. He said you were being promoted to a different department, that I'd be handling your current clients while you moved to strategic planning. Strategic planning. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about this situation. There was no strategic planning department at our small branch office. Gordon was lying to Preston just like he'd been lying to me. Preston, I need you to be completely honest with me. Has Gordon said anything about my job status? About me leaving or retiring? Preston's hands fidgeted with his pen. I thought you knew. He told me you were transitioning out. That by next month, I'd be managing the Granger, Davenport, and Johnson accounts independently. Those were my 3 biggest clients. The ones I'd built relationships with over years of dedicated service. The accounts that generated nearly 40% of our office's total revenue. I felt like I was falling down a deep hole. Did he mention anything about salary expectations? He said I was starting at entry level, but that there would be quick raises based on performance. That within 6 months, I could be earning what senior staff make. What senior staff make? Not what I make now, but what senior staff supposedly earned. Gordon was planning to eliminate my position entirely, give Preston my responsibilities at half the cost, and pocket the difference. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife asking about dinner plans. The normal world felt impossibly far away. I was trapped in a nightmare where 25 years of loyalty meant nothing. "Preston, I need to ask you to do something for me," I said quietly. "Don't sign any new paperwork or agree to any changes in your responsibilities until you talk to me first. Can you do that?" He nodded, confusion clear in his eyes. "Is something wrong?" "I'm not sure yet, but I think we both deserve to know the truth about what's really happening here." As I walked back to my desk, I could feel Gordon watching me from his office. He knew I'd figured out his plan. The question was what he'd do about it. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out my employee handbook. If Gordon wanted to play games with my career, he was about to learn that I knew how to read the rules too. My phone rang. Gordon's extension appeared on the screen. Gordon's voice had an edge I'd never heard before when he called me into his office that afternoon. "Close the door and have a seat," he said without looking up from his computer. His corner office felt smaller than usual, crowded with motivational posters about teamwork and success that seemed to mock the situation. I remained standing. "We need to discuss Preston's role. Preston's doing great work. Very promising young man." Gordon finally looked at me, his smile thin and calculated. "I'm glad you've been helping him settle in. He thinks he's replacing me." Gordon leaned back in his expensive leather chair, the one he'd bought with his last bonus. "Preston's confused. You know how new employees can be. Always eager to take on more than they can handle." "Stop lying to me, Gordon. I've seen his hiring paperwork. I know what you're planning." The mask slipped from Gordon's face. His friendly expression hardened into something cold and businesslike. "Planning? I'm managing resources efficiently. That's what good managers do. You're firing me and replacing me with someone at half my salary. I'm restructuring operations to remain competitive." Gordon stood up, straightening his tie. "The market has changed. Our clients want younger, more energetic representation. Preston connects with them in ways that, frankly, you can't anymore." The words hit like physical blows. "My clients specifically request me. Davenport Construction renewed their contract early because they trust my work. Johnson Manufacturing increased their orders by 30% under my management. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results." Gordon walked to his window, hands clasped behind his back. "The board wants fresh blood, innovation. Preston represents the future of this company. And I represent what? Dead weight." Gordon turned around, his expression almost pitying. "You represent expense. Your salary, your benefits, your vacation time. Preston costs half as much and works twice as hard. Simple math." I felt anger rising in my chest, but forced myself to stay calm. "You can't just eliminate my position without cause. I know my rights. Actually, I can." Gordon returned to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. "Your employment contract allows for job restructuring based on business needs. You signed the updated version last year during our annual review process." My stomach dropped. I remembered signing papers during my performance review, but Gordon had presented them as routine updates, standard contract modifications that everyone had to complete. "You tricked me into signing away my job security. I presented you with standard employment documentation. You chose to sign without reading carefully." Gordon's smile returned, smug and satisfied. "That's not my problem. I thought about my wife at home, probably planning dinner and wondering why I was late. About my daughter in college, depending on my salary for her education. About the mortgage we'd refinanced based on my steady income. What exactly are you offering me?" 90 days as Preston's mentor. Help him transition into your responsibilities. After that, we'll evaluate your fit within the new organizational structure. At what salary? Preston's starting rate, with the possibility of performance-based increases. $43,000. After 25 years of building this office's success, Gordon wanted to cut my pay in half and call it a transition opportunity. "You're stealing from me." Gordon's laugh was sharp and humorless. "I'm offering you continued employment in a changing marketplace. You can accept the new terms or explore opportunities elsewhere. Your choice. And if I refuse, then your position is eliminated effective immediately. No severance, no references, no transition period." Gordon sat down and opened his laptop. "I have a business to run. I can't carry dead weight because of misplaced loyalty. Dead weight. 25 years of perfect attendance, stellar reviews, and record-breaking sales reduced to dead weight. I pulled out my phone and started recording. So, you're admitting that you're eliminating my position to save money. Gordon looked up sharply. Turn that off. You just confessed to age discrimination and contract manipulation. I did no such thing. Gordon stood up quickly, his chair rolling backward. I explained business restructuring to an employee who refuses to adapt to changing conditions. You hired my replacement at half my salary and lied about it. I hired a qualified candidate for a new position with different responsibilities. The dance of corporate doublespeak made my head spin. Every honest word I spoke, Gordon twisted into business jargon designed to protect the company from lawsuits. My phone continued recording as Gordon walked around his desk toward me. Employees who can't embrace change don't belong at Pinnacle Industries. We reward innovation and punish resistance to progress. Progress? You're destroying lives to boost your quarterly numbers. I'm ensuring this office's survival in a competitive market. Gordon reached for my phone. Stop recording private conversations. I stepped back, keeping the phone out of his reach. This isn't private. This is my job you're discussing. Your former job. Gordon's voice turned dangerous. As of right now, you're on administrative leave, pending review of your attitude and cooperation with management directives. You can't suspend me for asking questions about my employment. I can suspend you for insubordination and creating a hostile work environment. Gordon pressed his desk intercom. Amanda, I need security to escort someone from the building. The room spun around me. One conversation had escalated from salary negotiations to termination. Gordon had turned my questions into insubordination, my concerns into hostility. But he'd also given me exactly what I needed to fight back. My phone was still recording when security arrived. The law office smelled like old books and coffee, but Frank Russo's handshake was firm and confident when I met him the next morning. Tell me everything, Frank said, pulling out a yellow legal pad. His gray beard and wire-rimmed glasses made him look like someone who'd seen every dirty trick companies could pull. I played the recording from Gordon's office. Frank's eyebrows raised higher with each word. When Gordon's voice said dead weight and eliminate your position, Frank stopped writing and looked directly at me. This is good. Very good. But we need more than one conversation to build a strong case. What kind of more? Frank opened his laptop and pulled up several legal documents. Employment records showing a pattern of age discrimination. Evidence that they violated contract modification procedures. Proof that they're systematically replacing older workers with younger, cheaper employees. My heart sank. I don't have access to that information anymore. Gordon suspended me, but other people do. Frank leaned forward. Who else at your company might be facing similar treatment? I thought about the past few months. Strange conversations I'd overheard. Older employees who'd suddenly left for family reasons or career changes. Workers who'd been moved to different departments with reduced responsibilities. Margaret in accounting mentioned something about budget cuts affecting senior staff. And Daniel from shipping said his hours were being reduced. Call them. Today. Before Gordon has time to silence potential witnesses. I left Frank's office with a mission and a growing sense of hope. But first, I had a more immediate problem. Preston had been texting me all morning, asking if I was okay and why security had walked me out. I met Preston at a coffee shop across town, far from Pinnacle's offices. He looked nervous and confused, stirring his drink without drinking it. I never wanted your job, Preston said quietly. Gordon made it sound like you were moving up, not being pushed out. I believe you, but I need to know exactly what Gordon told you about my situation. Preston pulled out his phone and showed me several text messages from Gordon. Instructions about taking over my client calls, directions to review my files and learn my procedures. Most disturbing was a message from yesterday. Don't discuss transition details with anyone, especially other employees. He's trying to keep you isolated, I explained. Make sure you don't accidentally tell someone the truth about what's happening. But what is the truth? I showed Preston the recording from Gordon's office. His face went pale as he listened to my boss casually discussing my elimination. He lied to me about everything, Preston whispered. He said you were getting promoted, that I was just filling a temporary gap. Gordon lies when it serves his purposes. The question is whether you're willing to help me prove what he's really doing. Preston stared at his untouched coffee. If I help you, I'll lose my job. If you don't help me, you'll lose your job anyway. Once Gordon has eliminated all the expensive employees, he'll start cutting costs elsewhere. Your salary will be next. That afternoon, I called Margaret from accounting. She agreed to meet me at a restaurant downtown, away from company property where Gordon might see us. Margaret looked tired and worried when she arrived. I'm glad you called, she said. Strange things have been happening in payroll. What kind of strange things? Margaret glanced around the nearly empty restaurant, then leaned closer. Gordon's been requesting salary information for all employees over 45. He wants to know their exact compensation, benefits costs, and contract terms. My stomach twisted. How many employees? 12 people, all long-term workers with high salaries. Margaret pulled out a small notebook. He also asked me to calculate potential savings if those positions were eliminated or restructured. Did you do the calculations? I had to. He's my boss. But the numbers were shocking. If Gordon replaced all 12 employees with younger workers at entry-level salaries, the company would save almost $800,000 annually. $800,000. That was serious money for a small branch office. Enough to justify almost any action in corporate America. Margaret, I need you to document everything Gordon has asked you to calculate. Dates, specific requests, the exact savings numbers. I can't. If Gordon finds out I'm sharing confidential information, I'll be fired immediately. If you don't share this information, you'll be fired anyway. You're probably on his list of expensive employees to eliminate. Margaret's face went white. You think he's planning to fire me too? I think Gordon is systematically removing anyone who costs more than entry-level salary. You've been with the company for 18 years. Your salary and benefits make you a target. I spent another hour convincing Margaret to help. She finally agreed to copy the documents Gordon had requested, but only if I promised to protect her identity. That evening, I called Daniel for shipping. His story was similar but different. Gordon had been asking about overtime costs and efficiency ratings for warehouse workers. Daniel had noticed that all the workers being evaluated were over 50 years old. Gordon told me the company was considering automation, Daniel explained, so we might need fewer people to handle the same workload. Did he mention specific people who might be affected? He asked about retirement eligibility for several employees. Wanted to know who might be convinced to leave voluntarily. The pattern was becoming clear. Gordon wasn't just targeting me. He was planning a complete restructuring of the workforce, eliminating experienced employees and replacing them with cheaper alternatives. But the most shocking discovery came when Preston called me late that night. I found something in my hiring paperwork, Preston said, his voice shaking. There's a clause that says my position is temporary, subject to business needs. And there's a salary review scheduled for 6 months that could result in adjustment based on market conditions. What kind of adjustment? It says my salary could be reduced if the company determines my compensation exceeds market rates for similar positions. Gordon's plan was even more devious than I'd realized. He was hiring young employees at decent starting salaries to make the transitions look legitimate. But once the experienced workers were gone, he planned to cut the new employees' pay too. Preston was going to learn the same lesson I had. Loyalty and hard work meant nothing when profit margins were involved. The next morning, I had enough evidence to return to Frank's office with a much stronger case. Amanda Lexford's office felt like a trap when I walked in 3 days later, armed with Frank's legal letter demanding a formal investigation. This is disappointing, Amanda said, sliding the letter across her polished desk without reading it. Her perfectly styled hair and expensive suit made her look like a corporate warrior prepared for battle. What's disappointing is Gordon's systematic discrimination against older employees, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Amanda opened a thick file folder with my name on it. Gordon has documented several performance concerns about your attitude and cooperation. Refusing direct orders, recording private conversations, creating workplace disruption. Those are lies, and you know it. I know what's documented in your personnel file. Amanda turned the folder so I could see pages of newly written reports. Insubordination on multiple occasions. Resistance to company restructuring. Inappropriate behavior toward new employees. My hands clenched into fists. Gordon had been busy creating a paper trail to justify my termination. Every conversation, every question, every attempt to understand my situation had been twisted into evidence of poor performance. These reports are fabricated. Gordon never mentioned any performance issues during my annual reviews. Performance standards evolve. What was acceptable 5 years ago may not meet current expectations. Amanda closed the folder with a sharp snap. The company is prepared to offer you a severance package in exchange for your resignation. What kind of package? Amanda slid another document across the desk. 60 days salary plus continuation of health benefits for 3 months. In return, you agree not to pursue legal action and sign a non-disclosure agreement. I scanned the severance offer, my anger growing with each paragraph. The non-disclosure clause was particularly harsh, preventing me from discussing my employment experience with anyone, including potential future employers. This is hush money. This is a generous offer for an employee whose performance has declined. Amanda's smile was cold and professional. I should mention that if you refuse this offer, the company will be forced to terminate you for cause. No severance, no benefits, and a personnel file that will make finding new employment challenging. The threat was clear. Accept their bribe and disappear quietly or face character assassination that would destroy my career prospects. I need time to consider the offer. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the offer expires and we move to involuntary termination. I left Amanda's office feeling like I'd been mugged by people in business suits. But instead of discouraging me, their desperation to silence me proved that Frank was right. Companies don't offer hush money unless they're afraid of what you might expose. That afternoon, I received an unexpected phone call from Preston. He sounded panicked. Gordon called me into his office. Preston said, "He knows we've been talking." What did he say? He warned me about associating with disgruntled former employees. Said it could affect my employment status if I'm seen as disloyal to company interests. Did he threaten to fire you? Not directly, but he made it clear that my job security depends on staying away from you. Preston paused. He also said something strange. He mentioned that my salary review might happen sooner than planned if there are concerns about my judgment. Gordon was tightening the screws, using Preston's job as leverage to isolate me from potential witnesses. But his heavy-handed tactics were also creating new evidence of retaliation. Preston, I need you to document every conversation with Gordon. Write down exactly what he says and when he says it. I can't. If he finds out, he's already planning to eliminate your position anyway. The only question is whether you help him destroy other people's careers while he destroys yours. The next morning brought another surprise. Margaret called me before I was supposed to give Amanda my answer about the severance package. Something terrible happened, Margaret said, her voice shaking. Gordon fired Daniel yesterday. Said he was caught stealing office supplies. Stealing office supplies? Daniel took home some printer paper and pens. Stuff everyone takes. But Gordon made it into a big theft issue and terminated him immediately. Daniel's firing was obviously retaliation for talking to me. Gordon was sending a message to other potential witnesses. Cooperate with my investigation and face immediate consequences. But Gordon's vindictive actions had also created an opportunity. Daniel would now be willing to testify without fear of losing his job. I called Frank immediately. They're retaliating against witnesses, and they're offering me hush money to disappear. Perfect. Retaliation strengthens our case significantly. Don't sign anything yet. They want an answer by noon. Give them an answer. Tell them you need to review the offer with your attorney. That will buy us time and put them on notice that you're not handling this alone. I arrive at Amanda's office exactly at noon, ready for the next round of corporate warfare. I assume you've decided to accept our generous offer, Amanda said before I could sit down. I've decided to have my attorney review the terms before making any commitments. Amanda's professional mask slipped slightly. Your attorney? Frank Russo. He specializes in employment law and workplace discrimination. He's very interested in Gordon's restructuring strategies. There's no need to involve outside parties in a simple employment transition. There's every need when the transition involves illegal age discrimination and contract manipulation. Amanda stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward. This conversation is over. Security will escort you from the premises. I'm not an employee anymore, remember? You can't have me escorted from a meeting I requested. For the first time since this ordeal began, I saw real fear in Amanda's eyes. The company's legal team had obviously warned her about the dangers of my case. Any further communication should go through corporate headquarters, Amanda said, reaching for her phone. My attorney will be happy to communicate with corporate headquarters. I'm sure they'll find Gordon's documentation practices very interesting. Walking out of Pinnacle Industries for what I thought would be the last time, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Power. Gordon had made a critical mistake. In his rush to eliminate me and silence witnesses, he'd created a trail of evidence that even the best corporate lawyers would struggle to explain away. The real battle was just beginning. 3 mysterious emails appeared in my inbox at 6 a.m., all from anonymous company accounts I didn't recognize. The first message contained a single line. Conference Room B, 7 a.m. Come alone. You're not the only victim. My coffee went cold as I stared at the screen. Someone inside Pinnacle Industries was reaching out, but who? And how many other employees were facing Gordon's restructuring plan? The second email contained an attachment, a spreadsheet showing salary data for 15 employees, all over age 45. Red marks indicated targeted for elimination next to 12 names, including mine. The savings calculations at the bottom showed nearly $1 million in reduced payroll costs. The third email was the most shocking. A voice recording of Gordon talking to someone about phase 2 of his cost-cutting strategy. His voice was clear and confident as he discussed eliminating dead weight and modernizing the workforce with hungry young talent. But who was sending me this information and why? I arrived at the Pinnacle building early, using the key card that somehow still worked. Conference Room B was empty except for shadows and the smell of yesterday's coffee. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Margaret entered first, looking nervous and carrying a manila folder. Daniel followed, despite being fired 3 days earlier. But the biggest surprise was Preston, who slipped through the door last and immediately checked to make sure no one had followed him. We need to talk fast, Margaret whispered. Gordon arrives at 8, and Amanda gets here by 7:30. Daniel placed a small recording device on the table. I've been documenting everything since you warned me about Gordon's plans. Turns out my suspicions were right. What suspicions? Daniel pressed play on his device. Gordon's voice filled the small room, discussing efficiency improvements and personnel optimization with someone whose voice I didn't recognize at first. The beauty of this approach, Gordon was saying, is that we eliminate high-cost employees while appearing to promote diversity and fresh thinking. Nobody can complain about age discrimination when we're hiring enthusiastic young professionals. The other voice responded, the board will love the cost savings. How much can we reduce payroll expenses? Conservative estimate? $800,000 annually. If we're aggressive about implementation, we could save over $1 million. Margaret gasped softly. That's Amanda Lexford's voice. Human Resources is helping Gordon plan these eliminations. Preston pulled out his own phone. I recorded something even worse yesterday. His recording started with Gordon's voice, but this conversation was different. Cruder, more honest about the real motivations behind the restructuring. These old-timers think loyalty means something, Gordon was laughing. 25 years of service? So what? Business is about profit, not sentimentality. I can replace any of them with college graduates who will work harder for half the money. Amanda's voice responded. What about legal risks? Age discrimination lawsuits could be expensive. That's why we document performance issues and create paper trails. Make it look like terminations are based on merit, not age. Classic corporate strategy. The room fell silent as Preston's recording ended. We all stared at each other, processing what we'd just heard. There's more, Margaret said quietly. She opened her manila folder and spread documents across the table. Gordon asked me to research early retirement packages for specific employees. He wants to pressure people into leaving voluntarily. The list of targeted employees was longer than I'd expected. Names I recognized from every department, all long-term workers with high salaries and good performance records. My name is on this list too, Margaret continued, along with Janet from customer service, Robert from maintenance, and Linda from sales. All of us have been with the company for more than 15 years. Daniel leaned forward. He's not just eliminating individual positions. He's restructuring the entire company to get rid of experienced employees. But why are you all helping me? I asked. You're risking your jobs by being here. Preston spoke up first. Because what Gordon's doing is wrong. And because I realized something important yesterday. What? He's planning to eliminate my position too. I found a memo on his desk about optimizing new hire compensation based on market adjustments. Once you and the other experienced employees are gone, he's going to cut my salary in half. Margaret nodded grimly. Same here. I saw budget projections that show my position being restructured within 6 months. Gordon plans to replace me with someone fresh out of college. So we're all targets, Daniel said. The only difference is timing. The conference room door opened suddenly, making us all jump. But instead of Gordon or Amanda, a woman I didn't recognize entered quietly. Don't panic, she said softly. I'm Diane Briggs from corporate headquarters. I sent you those emails this morning. My heart hammered against my ribs. You work for the company? I work for the board of directors. We've been investigating complaints about irregular employment practices at several branch offices. Diane sat down and pulled out her own recording device. What you've shared today confirms our worst suspicions about Gordon Mowrick's management methods. You've been investigating Gordon? For 3 months. We received anonymous tips about age discrimination and suspicious termination patterns. Your situation provided the evidence we needed to take action. Preston looked confused. But why didn't corporate stop Gordon sooner? Because we needed proof of intentional discrimination, not just suspicious patterns. The recordings you've gathered today, combined with the documentation Margaret provided, gives us enough evidence to involve federal investigators. Federal investigators. The word sent chills down my spine. This situation had escalated far beyond a simple employment dispute. What happens now? Margaret asked. Diane stood up and gathered the documents we'd shared. Now Gordon Mowrick faces federal charges for systematic age discrimination, conspiracy to defraud employees, and violation of multiple employment laws. Amanda Lexford will also face charges for her role in the conspiracy. And what about us? Daniel asked. You'll all be witnesses in a federal case. Your jobs are protected under whistleblower statutes. Anyone who tries to retaliate against you will face additional federal charges. As we left the conference room, I realized that Gordon's greed and arrogance had finally caught up with him. But the real surprise was still coming. Diane's final words, as we parted ways, left me speechless. By the way, we've also discovered evidence that Gordon has been embezzling the salary savings into personal accounts. This case is much bigger than employment discrimination. The fight for my job had become a federal criminal investigation. Federal agents were waiting in Gordon's office when he arrived at work Monday morning, and I watched through the conference room window as his confident expression crumbled into panic. This is insane, Gordon shouted as Agent Catherine Fenton read him his rights. I was following corporate restructuring guidelines. Agent Fenton looked up from her paperwork. Mr. Mowrick, you're being arrested for conspiracy to commit age discrimination, fraud, and embezzlement of company funds totaling $347,000. $347,000. Gordon hadn't just been eliminating jobs to save money. He'd been stealing the salary savings for himself. Amanda Lexford was already in handcuffs when they brought her out of the HR office. Her perfect corporate appearance was gone, replaced by the shocked expression of someone whose carefully planned schemes had collapsed overnight. I was following Gordon's instructions. Amanda kept repeating, "This wasn't my idea." But Agent Finnan had different information. "Ms. Lexford, we have recordings of you planning the discrimination strategy. You're equally responsible for these crimes." I stood in the hallway with Preston, Margaret, and Daniel, watching our former bosses get escorted away in federal custody. The scene felt like something from a television drama, not real life at a small company in Millbrook. How'd they find out about the embezzlement? Preston whispered. Diane Briggs appeared beside us, carrying a box of evidence. Corporate accounting discovered irregular budget transfers when they investigated the employment complaints. Gordon had been moving salary savings into fake consulting accounts he controlled. He was stealing from the company while claiming to save money. Classic embezzlement scheme. Gordon eliminated high salary positions, reported the savings to corporate headquarters, but diverted the actual money into personal accounts through fraudulent consulting contracts. The irony was perfect. Gordon's greed had made him careless about covering his tracks. While planning to destroy our careers, he'd been building evidence of his own criminal behavior. Frank Russo arrived an hour later with news about the legal settlement. Pinnacle Industries wants to resolve this quickly and quietly. They're offering substantial compensation to avoid a public trial. How substantial? Frank smiled. 7 figures. Plus guaranteed employment for anyone who wants to stay. Full back pay for wrongful termination, and a commitment to restore all affected positions. 7 figures. More money than I'd expected to earn in the rest of my career. But the victory felt hollow knowing how many other employees had suffered under Gordon's management. What about criminal charges? Gordon and Amanda are facing federal prison time. The embezzlement charges alone could result in 10-year sentences. Add the employment discrimination conspiracy, and they're looking at serious consequences. Preston looked stunned. All this happened because Gordon wanted to save money on salaries? Gordon wanted to steal money from salary savings, Frank corrected. The age discrimination was just his method for accessing funds to embezzle. 3 months later, I sat in the federal courthouse as Gordon's sentencing hearing began. He pled guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. But even the plea deal included 5 years in federal prison. Your Honor, Gordon's lawyer was saying, my client made serious errors in judgment during a difficult period for the company. Judge Landry wasn't impressed. Mr. Maurik systematically destroyed the careers of dedicated employees while stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars. These weren't errors in judgment. These were calculated crimes. Amanda received 3 years for her role in the conspiracy. Her corporate career was permanently destroyed, just like she'd tried to destroy mine. But the biggest surprise came during the victim impact statements. Preston stood up to address the court, his voice steady and strong. Gordon Maurik didn't just discriminate against older employees, Preston said. He lied to me about replacing dedicated workers. He made me complicit in destroying people's careers. The guilt of being used in his scheme will stay with me forever. After the hearing, Preston approached me in the courthouse hallway. I got promoted to Gordon's old position, he said. The company wants me to rebuild the office culture. Congratulations. You'll do great. I want you to know that your job is waiting whenever you're ready to come back. Same salary, same responsibilities, same respect you always deserved. I thought about returning to Pinnacle Industries, but realized that chapter of my life was over. The settlement money would let me start fresh somewhere new, somewhere without the memories of Gordon's betrayal. Thank you, but I think it's time for a new adventure. Preston nodded, understanding. If you ever change your mind, the door is always open. 6 months later, I started my own consulting business, helping other companies avoid the discrimination and embezzlement problems that had destroyed Gordon's career. My first client was Davenport Construction, who'd been outraged to learn about Gordon's treatment of their favorite account manager. We specifically worked with you because we trusted your experience, Davenport's owner told me. Replacing you with someone half your age would have cost us both money and quality. Margaret, Daniel, and several other Pinnacle employees joined my consulting firm. We'd survived Gordon's attempt to destroy our careers, and now we were helping other workers protect themselves from similar schemes. The news media covered Gordon's case as an example of corporate fraud disguised as business efficiency. Employment lawyers used our situation to educate other workers about recognizing age discrimination. But the most satisfying moment came when I received a letter from Gordon in federal prison. He wanted to apologize for his actions and ask for my forgiveness. I threw the letter away without reading it completely. Some people deserve forgiveness. Others deserve exactly what they get. Gordon Maurik got exactly what he deserved.